So hey there, this is in response to the video, where does the tone of a microphone come from? Now, the whole thing is kind of bunk, and hopefully I'll be able to kind of explain to it why that is really quickly. So I was kind of waiting for a couple of days after the video came out to see if anyone was gonna like, I guess, point out the very central flaw of like the whole test of the thing. Um, and I was actually surprised when no one did. So I guess I'm going to make the video about it. One of the most like damning things about the whole thing is that through the process of testing out all the different microphones and stuff like that, the majority of the test of the microphones, the bulk of the test was a microphone recording a already recorded performance reamped through a homemade speaker system. And this is obviously bad for many reasons, though. Well, the biggest problem with that is that the actual like recording has already been tainted with the microphones and the signal chain of that initial recording process, you know? And like the actual like recorded sources like the electric guitar, drums and acoustic guitar and stuff like that were already tainted with the sound of the microphones that you used in the recording process. And the whatever level of quality the signal chain was, from the mic cables to the preamps to the the audio interface and stuff like that. And then also don't forget all the processing that happened in the DAW side as well, with plugins, compressors, EQs, yada yada yada. And then all of that stuff then out from the audio interface back into a speaker system, again with speakers that we have no idea what level of quality that they are. Is that after all of that, though, you know, the resolution is now so low that all the nuances that you would hear from, let's say, a real live drum set in a real live room have now been erased, and now the microphone can't pick up any of that stuff. Like, you're already dealing with such a level of abstraction that now the nuances of every single microphone, you know, can't shine. Like, you know, all recorded music is like an artifice for like real live performance. You know, you can't produce a recording that is of such high quality that it can convince people that it's a real live performance. Like, there's no level of like recording of like a drum set, for instance, that you could reproduce through a speaker system that would fool people that it's a real live drum set being played. You know, everyone can kind of make out the difference between a real instrument being played in like the real world versus like a speaker reproduction of it, you know? Just by recording it and then reproducing it through a speaker system, you've already whittled down the resolution quite significantly from a real live analog source. And then, again, that is in the best case with the best equipment, the best microphones, and the best mic pre's, you know? So you're already dealing with a very compromised sound that you're recording. Recording already recorded material through a microphone, you're not using the microphone as a microphone anymore. You're using it as like a distortion box, you know? Like, all you're hearing from the recordings is all of the artifacts and distortion that the microphone imparts onto the signal, you know? You're not getting the benefits of it actually being a microphone anymore, you know? You're just hearing like the differences of like frequency and like artifacts and stuff, you know? You're not actually hearing like its utility as a recording tool. This is like the same thing like people who would reamp like mixes, like full mixes of like a song through a mic pre, like a Neve pre or something like that, to get the magic mojo of the mic pre. But you don't get the magic of a Neve pre unless you use it as an actual mic pre. Reamping your mix through a Neve pre just imparts artifacts and distortion onto the signal. You're just using it as a distortion box. And that's what a lot of these tests are in this example. You're just using these microphones as like a fancy distortion box. And the information that you're gleaming from the majority of these tests are only useful in comparing how a microphone is to an SM57 miking it up like, I don't know, whatever it was, 3 or 4 inches away from a speaker cabinet, you know? And the obvious rebuttal here is that, well, that's what the test was going for. He wanted to see how certain microphone A related to the standard, the SM57. And my rebuttal to that is, that's the wrong question to ask. No one who's a recording engineer chooses microphones like that, you know? No one goes, you know, this is psycho behavior, by the way. No one chooses a microphone like that. No one goes like, you know, oh, hey, you know, I I need a microphone that's like a little slim around like 300 hertz and like a little bit of a 10K prominence, you know, when I'm choosing my overheads. That's what I really want for my drum overheads, you know? This is psycho behavior. No one makes music like this. Again, the whole reason why we're doing this is that we're making art, you know? Like, I don't care about like how like rural or flat the microphone is or like what its frequency distribution is, you know? This is like those qualities are for people who use measurement grade microphones to determine, you know, when a jet engine is about to like malfunction, you know? This is not for people who like actually make art, you know? I think that instead the question should be, how does the microphone make you feel, you know? Because again, like that, like what are we doing here when it comes to recording music if not worrying about things like that, you know? Like there's no consideration to like how does a microphone, you know, how close does it make you feel to the performance? How attractive is the sound coming through it? How like intimate does it feel like the vocalist or performer is to you know, to our ears, you know? Like we should be worried about like, you know, trying to bridge the gap between like speaker and listener. You know, like we should be concerned about that, you know, because like that's what makes good art, you know? And a quick aside I wanted to talk about in regards to one of the observations about tubes and FET-based electronics. I'll tell you the secret. It's not a secret. At nominal levels of volume, tube-based electronics and FET-based electronics actually sound pretty similar. The differences come about whenever you start to push those pieces of electronics into overload. For instance, like a great perfect example is tube-based guitar amps versus solid-state amps. When you push the tube amp into distortion, or when you push it into overload, the distortion that we hear is much more pleasing to our ears. It has to do with even order harmonics. Whereas solid state or FET-based electronics sounds quite nasty and harsh to our ears, odd order harmonics and stuff like that. And the same thing goes for microphones. Tube microphones can handle high levels of signals way much better than FET-based electronics. Once you start to hit like the ceiling of your microphone, with a FET-based microphone, the signal and the peaks and stuff like that will start to get kind of distorted, rather nasty, kind of harsh. Whereas tube microphones, and the same thing goes for pre's, and the same thing goes for with mic pre's or compressors, etc. Is that it sounds a lot more nicer when you kind of push it a little bit harder, you know? Again, I don't really want to come off as like too mean with this. I actually really appreciate the level of effort that went into that video. Except for the only part that I really did not like, though, was the very ending. Because the sort of like, I guess, cockiness or the like level of confidence of saying that like your homemade soda pop can microphone can withstand a vintage Elam 251, I think is like, it's not just misinformation. I think it's a bit manipulative. Because, you know, again, with a 1 second clip, the clip was way too short, by the way. Again, of a processed full mix already recorded with microphones and then reamped through a speaker. The nuances of these two microphones, or the nuances of the signal, have been completely destroyed. The resolution is so low that, of course, that the Soda Pop Can microphone and the vintage Elam 251 sound identical on the source, you know? This test, though, would not be able to stand up to how most people do mic shootouts. For instance, next time you're trying to do this, do something with a lot more nuance, a lot more richness to it. A great example is vocals. Vocals are a notoriously very hard thing to record, and a thing that usually it's usually like the most important thing when it comes to like modern music is vocals. So like they're usually like the forefront of like what everyone wants to care about and what wants to like record really well. So, and also there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of richness and personality to a vocal. And that's a really good test of like a high quality microphone, you know? And comparing your Soda Pop Can microphone versus a Elam 251, it'll obviously show you the differences of why one commands a $30,000 price tag and yours does not. And also Transformers. Here's a great example. Transformers is a little bit more interesting because in regards to like the major sound shaping components of any microphone, because it's never just one component. It's what's the Mr. B-tongue word? It's a Wagner term, Gestalt Kunstwerk, something like that. It means like the total body of work. Basically, the something is more than just the sum of its parts. And a microphone is much like that as well. Any of like the big five microphones, for instance, are more than just the sum of its parts, you know? While the majority of the sound can be contributed to its capsule, sometimes 75, 80, 95%, without the other core tone shaping components of the microphone, the soundstage collapses and you no longer have the emotional attractiveness, the intimacy, and the resolution that makes those microphones so desirable. Changing just one aspect of those microphones will cause the whole thing to collapse, you know? Some microphones are not like that. The SM57 is a great example. You took the transformer out of that one and you didn't see that big of a difference, you know? Some microphones, transformers don't make a big difference. Other microphones, especially the older ones that were specifically designed with their transformers in mind, kind of do make a big difference. Same thing of tubes to a greater extent, but capsules by and large are the most important aspect when it comes to the tone shaping capabilities of any microphone. But it's not an always thing. Also, really quick, one more thing. During the test, you were trying to get the exact same distance with all the microphones by measuring the front of the microphone and not the capsules where the microphones are located in the microphone. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to align the diaphragms of the capsules of the microphone, because that's the actual thing that like records in the sound, you know? If you just measure the front of the microphones, you could have wide varying distances between like the actual capsules of them, you know? So you're getting different frequency responses from like the recorded mix. A great example is like an M49, you know, the head basket is actually quite large and, you know, the capsule is in the dead center of it, you know? So there's quite a distance between the front of that microphone and its capsule versus, let's say, something like an SM57, which the capsule of the microphone is much more closer to the front of the grill of the microphone. That's just one small little nitpick. Sorry. That's it. I apologize. Also, fundamental problem of all mic shootouts, it's not just your video, but all of them, is that microphone shootouts where the microphones are at the exact same distance as one another are all stupid because no one records material like this. Everyone knows that certain microphones have certain sweet spots. And as a result, when you're recording something, you should be using that microphone in whatever position it sounds best. With an SM58 on a vocalist, it'll probably sound better a lot closer to the source, whereas with a U47, you want to give that a few inches or a decent amount of inches away from the actual source, you know, to get the best sound possible. Everyone intuitively agrees upon this, but for some reason when we're doing mic shootouts, we're not comparing the most flattering image that each microphone is possible of creating. Everyone puts them at the exact same distances because they're all stupid, you know? Again, these are recording tools for making music. So we should be using them as they're intended, trying to get the most flattering image of them possible, and then comparing those flattering images to one another. Not comparing, you know, at the exact same distance, you know, how does one microphone compare to the other? Because that's the only information that you can glean from that is how one microphone is different from another. You don't gain any information about how useful that microphone is as a recording tool, as for making music, as for bridging the gap between speaker and listener. What this is like, I don't know. This is basic stuff. This is basic stuff. But yeah, I think that's it though. Yeah. Have a good day.